The A to Z Sports Prime Time from the Indianapolis NFL Scouting Combine. It's good to see everybody. Hope you're having a wonderful Tuesday evening. We have had a great first 2 days up here in Indy with night 2 on the horizon. A lot of good information, a lot of good connections to catch up with. If you were listening to the radio show today, where we are broadcasting live from Radio Row at the Indiana Convention Center, we had former Titans general manager Rand Carthon on the show today. Some really good insights on guys like Tavondre Sweat, on guys like Malik Willis and his future payday that's pending in NFL quarterback free agency. Should be a fascinating offseason on a variety of different fronts. But what we also got done today is Robert Saleh in a couple of different media availabilities. One, he did a sidebar with local media like myself, Paul Kaharski, Teron Davenport, and the like for a precursor to his podium availability, where he was made available to all of the NFL media that is in attendance this week. And then he sat down with us after the radio show concluded to tape an interview that you guys will hear with Robert Saleh on Wednesday's radio show. But the biggest takeaway, and what's going to be the biggest theme of the offseason program, is Cam Ward. Now that he's making progress towards throwing here, he's expected within the month of March. Well, obviously, we're still in February, on February the 24th, but in March, he is expected to resume some level of throwing activities, returning from that sprained AC joint that he suffered in Week 18 in Jacksonville. So, with that, detailing, fine-tuning, hammering out Robert Saleh's detail and his vision for Cam Ward at the NFL Combine is something that we're going to talk about today. So share the broadcast around Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and on Twitch, wherever you are spending your precious and valuable time with us. We do appreciate you participating that way. Text the link to a friend if you're so inclined. We're going to talk about Robert Saleh's vision for Cam Ward and a little more about what we learned here at the NFL Combine. Welcome into A to Z Sports Prime Time from the T-Dot Studios, which today is the Indiana Convention Center. I'm your host, Buck Rising. I'm proud, as always, to be presented to you by the wonderful people at Nobody Trashes Tennessee. The Tennessee Department of Transportation does remind you that you can be a part of the solution to end littering at nobodytrashestn.com. Also made possible by Two Rivers Ford, the South's most trusted Ford dealer. Online at tworiversford.com. Who also got us up here. Beautiful Ford Bronco. It's a Bronco Badlands that we're driving up here in Indy, and it is a beast of a machine. Two Rivers Ford Truck Month right now. tworiversford.com for more details. And Simon Says Nashville, the premier men's clothing spot in Nashville, is Simon Says. You can check them out in Wedgwood, Houston. Online, simonsaysnashville.com. Okay, so every time we talk to Robert Saleh, in the lead up before the season begins, there's going to be a lot of Cam Ward dialogue. We also talked to him today about Will Levis and viewing him, whether he does view Will Levis as a viable backup quarterback option. But Robert Saleh at his media availability had a couple of different responses on Cam Ward, one of which we're going to play for you guys here in just a second. And as we talk about this, your Two Rivers Ford take made possible by the South's most trusted Ford dealer, Two Rivers Ford. Online at tworiversford.com. Truck month going on right now with America's best-selling truck, the Ford F-150. Your Two Rivers Ford take is this. What is the most important point for Robert Saleh to help with Cam Ward's development? Where do you want to see him make a meaningful step under Robert Saleh specifically, not under Brian Daboll, understanding that Robert Saleh is a defensive-minded head coach going to call the defensive plays for Tennessee this coming year, which is a different thing, as we've talked about many times, than what he did as the head coach of the New York Jets. What is the one developmental point that you want to see Robert Saleh help Cam Ward with the most? Because I do think there's some viable answers there, even if it's a little counterintuitive to based on what they're both of their backgrounds are. So you let me know. Two Rivers Ford take made possible by Two Rivers Ford. What is the one thing you want to see Robert Saleh help Cam Ward's development with? For me, there's a couple of different things that I think you can take away from that Robert Saleh can help Cam Ward with. But Robert Saleh was asked this question at the podium and was able to give a response that you guys, I think, will appreciate?
You know what? For Cam, it's always going to come down to. I said before, we're going to take him back to his rookie year, to square one. You know, a lot of these rookies, when they get in when they join the team, you're already halfway through phase 2, and you're kind of playing. You're in a sprint to try to get them ready for training camp and for week 1. We can kind of take more of a marathon approach with them, where you know, we've got phase 1, we've got phase 2, we've got different ways we can approach them between now and week 1 to get them prepared. So just taking those baby steps, learning everything it takes to be a quarterback, not just on the field but off the field. So again, just him being his best and getting better every single day will be good enough.
Which, again, is such a baseline guiding principle, what he's saying there. They're just going to be able to slow things down for Cam Ward this year. I think, and we talk about this every year, so maybe you guys don't underrate the idea of just how difficult it is for any rookie, regardless of the first overall pick, regardless of Mr. Irrelevant with the last pick in the NFL draft. It is almost impossible for these guys to just find the level throughout the course of their rookie season with how quickly everything moves, especially when you're dropped into a dysfunctional situation like Tennessee was upon Cam Ward's arrival. Will it continue to be? Obviously, we don't know that, but was when he got here, where, yes, Mike Borgonzi is trying to iron things out in his first year, but Mike Borgonzi also has to first diagnose a lot of the issues that are being presented to him and then start to work towards solutions. That takes time. Cam Ward is in a similar situation with an embattled head coach who gets fired 6 weeks in to his second NFL season, into Cam Ward's first NFL season. And so Cam Ward has to feel this level of urgency to pick up, not just when Brian Callahan is fired, but also when they take play calling away from Brian Callahan. That's a really tough thing that Cam Ward has had to navigate. Now it's a lot cleaner. Brian Daboll will call the plays. Robert Saleh will be the head coach. Cam Ward doesn't have to go through things like NFL Combine and pro days and all the different draft preparations that you have to make, all the different distractions that can come with what it is to be a rookie in the NFL. Everything gets so much more clean and precise in year 2. There is such a huge thing to being able to slow this down for Cam Ward, and I think that's the place that Robert Saleh can just simply be a calming presence, a stabilizing force. It seems very, very common sense, but how often have you been able to apply common sense to what Tennessee has done here in the last couple of years? A to Z Sports Primetime is presented by the Tennessee Department of Transportation, where TDOT reminds you that nobody trashes Tennessee. Be a part of the solution to end littering at nobodytrashestn.com. So that was the biggest takeaway today about just bringing the level of patience. He was also asked questions about Tavondre Sweat's scheme fit. We'll talk to Mike Borgonzi about personnel evaluation with a guy like Saleh and his staff coming in, and the idea of a fresh start for players, which Gus Bradley spoke about as a defensive coordinator when he met with the media in Tennessee for the first time last week. How fresh of a start can there be when you've already, as a personnel evaluator, worked with a guy like Sweat, versus could that fresh start be giving him a fresh start elsewhere, or Levis, or any of these players that we talk about that may not have a long-term future here in Tennessee, or where at least the future is murky. And that takes us to our second question about Will Levis. Do you view Will Levis as a viable backup quarterback option? Give me your answers in the comment section. We'll talk about it together on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and Twitch. Do you view Will Levis as a viable backup quarterback option? It's something that we talked to Saleh about that you'll hear on the radio show tomorrow, and his answer, I think, is going to intrigue you about things. And in fact, he seems to be, of course, these are things that you say regardless of who the player is, because they're on your team and you want to support that player. But his support of Will Levis was, a little more full-throated than I was honestly expecting, given the situation that Will has been in. Now, me personally, I do view Will Levis as a viable backup quarterback option. I don't know that Will Levis has the mentality to actually be a backup quarterback and take the lumps that I think it's necessary for him to take to further his development and give himself a real opportunity, rather than just get traded for the sake of being traded, go somewhere else potentially, I don't think that anybody would trade for him to be a starter, but potentially for him to try and force himself square peg round hole into another place where he feels pressed that he has to be the starter. I think that there are good lessons to be learned, even if you have to sit behind a player that's younger than him and Cam, which is humbling. I think there's good lessons to be learned in humbling. Now, it's easy for me to talk about being humble when, very much not the case around here, but I would say that I view Will Levis as a viable backup quarterback option. It's going to be interesting to see how the combine. Ty Simpson is one of the most interesting players here at the combine. He has the ability to impact both the free agency and the draft, and how much more hay he can make for himself potentially if he hurts his draft stock. How much more attractive does a guy like Levis become to teams in a trade? Does Tennessee view him as a cost-controlled, team-controlled option if they can get him to buy in and be a team player in the truest sense? And it would take some level of effort on Will Levis's part to be that kind of team player. Can Brian Daboll also bring along the skill level of Will Levis the way that he intends to do for Cam Ward? I would be inclined to keep him depending on what's being offered. Now, again, if we see just how desperate teams get in free agency with what's out there, Titans legend Malik Willis being the most attractive free agent quarterback option this year, Fernando Mendoza being the obvious option at the number one overall pick without a clear consensus beyond Ty Simpson after that as to who is the best quarterback option outside of the top overall draft pick. I would say that Levis is viable in the same way that Mac Jones is viable for San Francisco. Now, Mac Jones has obviously played a lot more football. He's further along in his career. He's had a lot of these ups and downs experiences, but there can be growth in there. The question is, to me, and this is the defining question, is Will Levis willing to learn from those defining moments that he's faced earlier in his career? Because right now he's been defined by his mistakes. We will wrap it up for the afternoon, for the evening here at Indy. We will have Robert Saleh and Mike Borgonzi on the radio show tomorrow at the very least. We had Rand Carthon today. Go check out the podcast. A couple of good moments from Rand Carthon, including a bit of a response to some of the people that, Rand and I have talked about this, the idea that I did call for his firing, and that is an unpleasant situation when you're dealing with that level of criticism, especially when you start calling for somebody to lose their job. And he knows that I did. I know why I did it, and I would do it again based on the results that we were seeing. And Rand and I have obviously had an understanding about that. He's always been very gracious with that level of criticism, as long as you don't make it personal. But if we had a gone viral moment to pick from, by the way, Simon Says Nashville makes the primetime show possible. Go check them out in Wedgwood, Houston, Nashville's premier men's clothing spot where you can dress for success, SimonSaysNashville.com. I would be inclined to say that gone viral moment, as we get ready to wrap up here this evening, that gone viral moment might be the first part of that Rand Carthon interview, because I wonder if you guys can figure out who he's talking about who did make it personal during his time in Tennessee, because it sounds like he's got a little bit of a grudge to work with at this point in time. Have a great rest of your evening. We will see you tomorrow morning at 10 a.m. on 104.5 The Zone, and look forward to you guys hearing our interviews with Saleh, Borgonzi, and everybody else that stops by here in Indy. See you guys.
He's a hoe, and I want that known. Like, I see why he got punched in the nuts, because that's some, like, he's